What is it like when you first see that bow come into view and you're going around this thing that everybody around the world knows of and has seen pictures of and is fascinated by? My kids are completely enchanted by the ship, never saw the movie, but are just so enamored by like, it's this thing that everybody is drawn to, and here you are having actually been to it. What is it like down there?
Well, this is what it's like. Well, first of all, you're right, because only 108 people in the world have been down to the Titanic. More people have been to outer space. And unfortunately, obviously, we're not getting along with Russians these days. So the Mirs, which were the only two submersibles at that point in time that could go down there, because we have other ships. The Alvin went down and discovered the Titanic, but the Alvin was not carrying a passenger.
Right.
The Alvin was more, the Alvin went down itself as a submersible. These were passengers, so it was only the Russians that had those ships at the time. And then we were actually, the group that we went down were the last people, the last civilians that were able to go down to the Titanic. And so now they allow scientists, but now the scientists are not allowed to use the mirrors. There's another company, I don't remember the name of it, but I have it on my website because I was like, wow, I wonder if any other company did it. And I saw that the company in 2018 said that they were going to take people down to the Titanic. And then I went back on and it said, oh, no, we're going to do it in 2019. And then they said they were going to do that 2020, and obviously COVID hit. So I don't know if that company's ever going to do it, but they're claiming they will. Down there, after 500 feet, it's total darkness. So everything down there is albino. And the life forms are different because obviously if there's no sunlight, it's very different. The whole time that we were down there, going down, spiraling down, because that's how the submersible goes down. It actually spirals down. When we did turn on the lights every now and then, the headlights of the Mir, but you don't want to do it because it uses up the battery, and you certainly don't want to get stuck down at the bottom. So, you keep the battery for the reserve for when you're looking at the Titanic itself. But I saw like this ocean. I mean, it looked like like when you eat calamari and the little round pieces. I saw this fish swimming around.
Mhm.
I'm like, is that a floating piece of calamari? Like, what is that thing? And then when we got down to the bottom, and again, all your listeners could go to Fran Capo, FRANCAP as in Peter O, Fran Capo, like head of the month, francapo.com, and click on where it says World Records, and there's pictures of all the things I'm describing. So when we got down, the very first thing that I saw was a starfish with the center of the starfish about the size of a quarter, and all of its arms of the starfish, instead of being fat arms, were like skinny little spaghetti noodles coming out of that little round body. And then we saw this one other fish, an albino fish, that they called Albert, and that fish was the only fish that Cameron and all his people said they would see consistently every time that they went down there. So I think this fish actually liked the camera because, there's got to be other living things down there, but none of them are down there. Now, the other thing is when you first see the bow, that's the most recognizable thing because it's like, I'm king of the world, so you remember him doing that. So you see the bow. But you got to remember, at the time I went down, it was 90-something years. Now it's over 100 years because it's 1912. And now it's over 100 years that the ship has been down there. And there's these things called rusticles, not barnacles, rusticles, that actually eat the rust on the ship at a rate of 2,000 pounds per day. So where the mast was, if you remember in the movie, or, like the guy was in the bird's nest and he's like, iceberg ahead, whatever, when they see it, that mast has fallen down. And if you were to take your finger, you could poke a hole in it because that's how disintegrated it is. And so like the sides of the ship, they're down, and the front and the back of the ship broke. So the bow is one place, and the stern, you have to travel like 15 minutes on ocean floor, and the stern is another place. But the stern is all mangled. The only thing you could really see is the propeller in the back. So it's very eerie because it feels very surreal because you've seen the movie, you have the movie in your head, and actually while we were on the Keldysh, the ship above, we actually saw it the night before we went down, so you have it fresh in your mind, and we also saw another movie called Ghosts of the Abyss. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing is very different than, the ship you imagine. So they have to, like, you would see like a tub, and then Anatoly explained that's Captain Smith's cabin. The outside of it is taken off, and so you were seeing into his cabin and seeing the tub that was there. You would see the steering wheel, but not the wooden part, because anything wood, anything clothing, anything like that, long disintegrated.
Right.
When they first went down, those people brought stuff up. There were two separate companies, Blue Star and then the Titanic company that brings up the replicas that, that floating, that rotating museum that goes around the world. So those items are there. First, they, of course, tried to see if any family members owned any of that stuff. And if they did, they gave it back to them. They're not. The other unclaimed stuff is in that rotating museum. But the stuff that's down there is just, basically it's the ship, the interiors of the ship. So you're seeing light bulbs, you'll see a dish, you'll see a bottle of whiskey laying at the bottom. But it's very eerie because you're looking into the passenger windows. Now, the top of passenger windows you could see are open because they were above the water, but obviously the third-class passengers at the bottom, they couldn't open their windows, so their windows have little crustaceans on them. And it's fascinating because you're seeing history, but at the same time you're going, is this real? It feels very surreal. First of all, that you're 2.5 miles down at the bottom of the ocean, and that you're seeing a part of history there that has been down there at that time for 93 years, now over 100 years. And it's disintegrated, and it is just amazing feeling to see something that, a tiny, tiny percentage of people will ever see.